Welcome back to the Late Reader. The lamp is lit. The window is open. The rain has not stopped. Settle in. Listen.
My wife and I were the kind of people who couldn't walk past a stray without bringing it home. Our first apartment was basically a zoo. We had a couple of rescue mutts, a tank full of neon tetras, a bearded dragon, and a cat. The cat was a massive, pitch-black shorthair named Pluto. He was my shadow. When I worked at my laptop, he was on the desk. When I went to the kitchen, he was weaving between my ankles. I was the only one who fed him, and he made it clear I was his favorite. We had a good life for a few years, right up until I lost my job at the logistics firm.
That was when the drinking started. It wasn't just weekend beers anymore. It was cheap vodka in the afternoon, killing time while my wife was out working her clinic shifts. The alcohol turned me into someone else. I got mean. I snapped at her over nothing. I kicked the dogs out of my way when I walked through the hall. I neglected all the animals, but, for a while, I still had enough of a conscience to leave Pluto alone. Eventually, the liquor took that away too. One night, I stumbled in around 2 in the morning, completely trashed. I dropped my keys, and the noise sent Pluto scrambling under the sofa. I reached under to drag him out, and in his panic, his teeth sank deep into the webbing of my thumb. The sudden pain flipped a switch in my brain. I didn't even think. A cold, absolute fury took over. I grabbed him by the scruff, pulled the box cutter out of my work pants, and took his left eye. I woke up the next afternoon sick with myself. I saw the blood on the floor and felt a brief, hollow pang of remorse, but I just poured another drink and washed it away. Pluto survived. The socket healed over into a sunken, ugly scar. He still walked around the house, but the second I entered a room, he would bolt in absolute terror.
At first, his fear made me feel guilty, but guilt is uncomfortable, and pretty soon, that discomfort turned into irritation. A kind of pure, senseless spite took over. It's that dark urge people get to do something wrong simply because they know they shouldn't. One morning, while my wife was at work, I took a length of nylon paracord, tied a slip knot, and hung Pluto from the heavy branch of the elm tree in our backyard. I cried while I did it. I knew exactly how sick and evil it was, but I tightened the knot anyway.
That same night, I woke up choking on thick, black smoke. A grease fire had caught in the kitchen and spread through the old wiring in the walls. We barely made it out the front door in our pajamas before the roof caved in. The house was a total loss. Everything we owned was gone.
The next afternoon, I walked through the wet, charred wreckage with the insurance adjuster. Only one interior wall was still standing, the one right behind where our bed used to be. A crowd of neighbors had gathered at the edge of the yellow tape, pointing at it. I walked closer. The fire had baked the drywall into a hard white shell, but right in the center of that expanse was a massive dark silhouette burned perfectly into the surface. It was a giant cat, with a thick rope tied around its neck.
I stood there freezing in the afternoon sun. I forced myself to rationalize it. I told myself someone in the crowd the night before must have cut the cat down from the tree and tossed it through the open bedroom window to try and wake us up. I told myself the intense heat, the melting plastics, and the ammonia from the decaying body. Some weird chemical reaction had baked the shape into the plaster. I told myself all of that, but I still couldn't sleep.
We moved into a cheap, cramped rental across town with an unfinished basement. A few weeks later, I was sitting on the patio of a dive bar downtown when I saw a black shape sitting on the lid of a trash can near the alley. It was a cat. It was the exact same size as Pluto, with the same sleek black coat. I walked over and reached out. It pushed its head into my palm, purring like an engine. The only difference was a jagged patch of white fur on its chest. I asked the bartender if it belonged to anyone. He said he'd never seen it before. When I walked home,
my wife loved it immediately, but within days my stomach started turning whenever the thing was near me. It was too clingy, it wouldn't leave me alone. And then I noticed its face in the daylight. It was missing its left eye. That should have been enough to make me run, but it got worse. The white patch of fur on its chest started shedding and growing back in a more distinct shape. At first, it was just a blur. After a month, the outline was undeniable. The white fur formed the exact shape of a gallows.
The cat became a living nightmare. I'd wake up suffocating in the middle of the night, only to find it sitting heavily on my chest, its one good eye staring down at me in the dark. My drinking spiraled. My temper was a loaded gun, and my wife took the brunt of it.
One afternoon, we went down to the basement to look for some old storage boxes. The stairs were steep, just bare wooden planks. The cat darted between my legs as I walked down. I missed a step and nearly pitched forward head first onto the concrete floor below. I caught the handrail, my heart hammering against my ribs. A wave of blinding rage hit me. I grabbed a heavy steel framing hammer from the workbench. I was going to cave the animal's skull in.
I swung, but my wife grabbed my arm from behind. The interference broke whatever tiny thread of sanity I had left. I ripped my arm free, turned around, and drove the claw of the hammer into her skull. She dropped to the concrete without a sound.
I didn't panic. I felt coldly, efficiently calm. I couldn't drag her up the stairs or put her in the trunk of my car in broad daylight. I looked at the basement walls. They were old brick, partially covered by crumbling plaster. There was an old, sealed-up coal chute protruding from one side. I grabbed a crowbar and knocked the bricks loose. It created a perfect, dark cavity. I pushed her body inside, propping her up against the damp earth. I mixed a bucket of quickset mortar, stacked the bricks back up, and troweled the cement over the seams.
I even rubbed some dirt over the wet mortar so it matched the rest of the dingy wall. When I was done, it was invisible. I looked around for the cat. I wanted to finish the job, but it was gone. For 3 days, the house was completely silent. I slept like the dead. I didn't feel a shred of guilt. I just felt free.
On the 4th day, 2 detectives knocked on my door. Her coworkers had reported her missing. I invited them in. I made them coffee. I answered their questions with total calm. They asked to look around, and I walked them through the house. Eventually, they asked to see the basement. I led them down the wooden stairs. I didn't flinch. My heart beat as steadily as an innocent man's. They shined their flashlights into the corners, checked behind the water heater, and ran their hands along the walls. They found nothing. They were satisfied.
A rush of pure, arrogant adrenaline hit me. I couldn't just let them leave. I had to gloat. Just a little, well, officers, I said, leaning against the wooden railing. I hope you find her. This is a solid old house, you know. They don't build them like this anymore. I picked up a piece of scrap pipe from the workbench. Look at this foundation, solid as a rock. I swung the pipe and rapped it hard against the exact spot where I had rebuilt the brickwork.
Metallic clang echoed off the concrete floor. Then, before the echo could fade, a sound answered from inside the wall. It started as a low, muffled sobbing, like a crying child. Then it swelled, rising in pitch and volume until it became a long, continuous, unearthly shriek. It was a wail of absolute agony and triumph, sounding like it was being ripped straight out of hell.
The detectives froze. Then they grabbed tools from the bench and started tearing at the wall. The bricks tumbled down in a cloud of gray dust. My wife's body stood slumped in the dark recess, her hair clotted with dried blood, and sitting right on top of her head, its red mouth open in a continuous scream, its one eye glowing in the flashlight beams, was the black cat.
That was the story. The lamp will still be on when you wake. New stories every Friday at the late hour. Until then, watch your reflection.